I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. Usually I do an interview on Wednesday, but today I am going to do something a bit different. I want to talk to you about the risks in the market. And I use this as a cartoon because this was tweeted out by the President of the United States, which is the minority leader in the Senate and the Speaker of the House. This is on Trump's Twitter page. Listen, I love Trump's Twitter page. More about that in just a minute. But it's a sign of turmoil, of geopolitical risk here in America, and also there's signs of geopolitical risk out in the world. But the biggest sign in terms of financial risk, I think, is the repo market. It has actually turned into a cartoon since mid-September. It stepped into the repo market and now has a permanent repo facility. So the craziness is now permanent. And so this is what really tripped my trigger on doing this. And I wanted to start with just this one fact. Last Friday, as this is macro view, has the Fed trapped itself? Well, yes. On year end, the Fed had pumped in a total of $255 billion, 0.95 billion into the market versus, get this number, folks, $258.9 billion on last Friday. On Friday, one day, $258 billion in liquidity on Friday. The market got addicted to QE, and it will take pain to wean the repo market off the cheap Fed cash. Well, first, warning bells went off. What is going wrong where they got to pump out $258.9 billion in one day? And this thing about the market is addicted. That's really undersells all this. They're not addicted. The market will fail without massive Fed money printing and propping up. And they're afraid of some sort of failure, a massive failure, because they have thrown all rules and all monetary theory to the wind. And yet the financial press is like, oh, look, another new high on the stock market. Isn't the economy great? Unemployment is 3.5%, according to John Williams. It was done in 1994 and earlier by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It'd be around 20%. There are plenty of things pointing to there's something wrong with the economy. But I think the repo market, if the economy was so good, they would not be doing this in the repo market that they're doing. And it's not an addiction. It is life support. If they pull the plug, boom, life as we know it is over. And yet, people are ignoring the financial risks. I had a friend of mine who's going to, get a retirement home, dream retirement home. And they're in their 60s, and they're looking at a year or two to, to collect their Social Security, their pension, whatever it is. And I said, well, why don't you take some, money off the table? It means we have this big, rise up and pay your dream house off. Oh, no. Oh, we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna leave it in. Okay, I'm gonna put 10 or 15,000 down. This is from somebody who's 60 something. You're gonna have a 30-year note. You'll be 90 something when you pay it off, unless you make some extra payments. But that's not the mindset here. And another acquaintance of mine has a pension from Boeing. And you don't know who this person is, so I can tell you. But, she got advice from the financial institution saying, oh, you need a tax deduction. You should refinance your house. I said, whoa, hold on a minute. You're spending $1 to get 30 cents back. I mean, you're spending lots of money to get a pretty small tax return. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars to get $5 or $6 grand back. $20, $25, $30,000 to get $5 or $6 grand back. In terms of your write-off. You spend a lot for that write-off. Why don't you just pay him the $5 or $6 grand? And I said, pay your house off. And I said, and this is back before the 737 MAX debacle, which I want to talk about more about that in a minute, about it being a possible trigger to this repo madness. But I said, you never can tell how a company may fare. I know it's Boeing. They were fantastic. They were killing it at the time. And thank goodness this person took the money that they had. They could pay off their house. It wasn't all that much, but it was enough. And they paid their house off. And then look what happened to Boeing. You don't think that could eventually, if it gets bad enough, they're not selling any commercial aircraft. I mean, their orders have plunged. I think the company's in trouble. I think it's unbelievable. But back to the Federal Reserve. And so you look at the Federal Reserve admits to pumping in more than $6 trillion to Wall Street in recent 6-week period, to a recent 6-week period. Now this is for Wall Street on Parade. It's Pam Martins and Rush Martins, two pretty good journalists. And this is what they wrote. The Fed's minutes also, this is from the Fed's information, so they quoted their source. The Fed's minute also acknowledged that its most recent actions have tallied up to roughly $215 billion per day. Excuse me? $215 billion per day flowing to trading houses on Wall Street. There are more than, it goes on, just the quote goes on, there are more than 29 days between the last Federal Open Market Committee, FMOC, meeting and the latest Fed minutes, meaning that approximately $6.2 trillion in cumulative loans to Wall Street's trading houses had been made in that short a span. Now, these are loans now. Michael Pinto talks about the money that actually ended up on the Fed's balance sheet back again. I mean, you realize that we had 20% sell-off in the Dow last year in 2019 in December, 18. And the only reason why that stopped, and it was worse in the Russell 2000, it was up in the high 30% down. And they had to come out and say they were going to stop raising interest rates. And they were going to stop, burning money on their balance sheet, reducing their balance sheet, which was both those things. But that got the balance sheet reduction should have gotten way more press than it did. They were burning up to $50 billion a month at one point. And as Jim Rickards says, you have the helicopter money, and then you could take a look at what's going on, with the Fed and Powell, and just a shovel going into a furnace. They're just burning liquidity, capital. They're burning it. And so Pinto says it was at least $500 billion went on their balance sheet. And that's money poof, gone. Not they're expected to get paid back in loans and repos and other stuff. Poof, bye, gone. That's back on our balance sheet. And then you have Bank of America. Now these are all quotable, findable sources, not tinfoil hat, in mom's basement somewhere. And this is Bank of America. QE is annualizing a sum of $1.1 trillion in the past 4 months. This is the QE. The Fed says it's not QE. Everybody snickers and says, "Oh, come on, stop." This is when central banks flood the markets with liquidity. Risk assets go up. FOMC should create peak bullishness and dovishness. We would recommend a selling strategy, a selling into strength strategy. In other words, Bank of America is warning, hey, listen, you should lighten up on the risk. And then we're just talking about the Fed, the repo, the loans, the money. We're not talking about all the geopolitical and the political in the United States. We'll get to that in a minute. And then if you look at the chart that came with this is the Fed's actions, and this is the stock market right along with it. Now, what happens when the Fed either has to stop or forced to stop or decides it wants to stop? What do you suppose happens to this line of the stock market, which nobody wants to exit now because, they're making tons of money? Yeah. Now take a good look at it. This is what the Fed, this is the liquidity. This is the liquidity, and this is the stock. Or does that look amazingly like it's the stock market is going up because the Fed is flooding the market? That'd be yes. Now, this is this balance sheet thing that I was telling you about, how the Fed was, burning money off their balance sheet, according to Jim Rickards. And if you look at this chart right here, you see, and this is why we got into trouble at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. The Fed had to, boing, reverse course. This isn't just an addiction you need to be weaned off of, and then everything will be okay after a while. I think it's a extinction event type thing they're fighting. I think that nothing will be the same if they let this thing go. That's huge risk, folks. What they're doing in the repo market is Bugs Bunny, Wile E. Coyote cartoon. I mean, you got the Wile E. Coyote, out over the cliff in midair doing this with his legs. Like, I'm okay now. It's not that long fall. It's a quick stop. I mean, the Fed can't stop or it blows up. And I don't mean just a little pain. I mean, it changes, the whole paradigm changes. That's what I think. They don't care. They They don't care. And the mainstream media, oh, look at it, great stocks. Oh, I'm going to buy Apple. Oh, look at this new iPhone. Oh, this is fantastic. What? And then you look at David Stockman, who was a former White House budget director. I've had him on as a guest, and we'll have him on again. I like him. Listen, I want you to know, I'm not a Trump hater. I love Donald Trump, and we'd be in, as I've said many times, we'd be in a depression if it wasn't for Donald Trump. I'm so happy he is president, because when this blows, and everybody knows it's going to blow at some point, he's going to be the guy. I hope he's the guy in charge after 2020. I hope he's the guy that's going to remediate this, because that's the best hope for we the people. Because if one of these criminals, like Hillary or one of these other communists like Bernie Sanders, or this criminal fraud of, the Bidens, where their life is a big fraud fest and we deserve to be rich at the expense of the little people. But I think Trump's going to be the guy in charge. But that doesn't mean there's not risk there for you. I mean, tons of risk is out there. And that's just, I'm talking about the financial risk. And then look at the geopolitical risk just inside of America, which is why I held this up, folks. This is on Donald Trump's Twitter page to about 71 million people. And that kind of sums up the risk, doesn't it? He's tweeting out to 71 million people, Nancy and Najib and Schumer, who's the minority leader in the Senate, in some turban. And doesn't that kind of sum up the whole geopolitical risk thing? Doesn't that sum that up? Of how bad this whole impeachment thing is, and Mitch McConnell saying he doesn't have enough votes in the Senate to dismiss it because of the turncoat, rhino Republicans like Romney and Murkowski in the Senate. Could they swing 20 some odd Republican senators? Only if they want to just say, I don't want to be a senator anymore. After this election, I'm done. The next time the election comes up, I'll be finished. So could they damage the president? Could they get a bipartisan? Well, there was a bipartisan effort to remove him, but they fell short. I mean, I don't know. Tom Fenton is now out saying what I've been telling you for a while. I'll get to David Stockman in just a minute. I haven't forgotten that. They're fighting this impeachment so hard because they're trying to fight prosecution. What have I been telling you? How can you make multiple people commit felony after felony because you like a donkey instead of an elephant or something? How can you do that? How can this many felonies be committed at the FBI, the DOJ, the Obama administration, Democrats mostly because they were in charge last year, and then the rhino Republicans who kept quiet about the Hillary Clinton criminal fraud foundation? You have Huber out, who was, we were told, oh, he's working in the background. He did nothing. That's another lie we were told. Prosecutor Huber got nothing with those emails. Had a plane load sent down to Little Rock. What happened to all those records? So the geopolitical risk is off the charts as well. We've never been here before. You have the President of the United States, tweeting out, which I think is funny and I think absolutely appropriate because they were so on the side of Iran and the fraudulent Iran nuke deal where everybody took bribes. And that's not so far-fetched now. If you look at all the bribes and the kickback scheme in Ukraine, the same thing. And so if you look at what's going on, it's there's a lot of risk out there, and they're doing things to try to keep it from imploding. That's all I can tell you. And then the Democrats are trying to keep from going to jail and being prosecuted. So they're pushing a phony impeachment thing, and they'll get other crooked Republican senators in the Senate, I'm sure, to try to kick the president out of office because they're exposed to. The president, by the way, does this for $1 a year. He's the president for $1 a year. Each and every year he donates his salary. He doesn't do it all at once. I think he does it in stages to some charity or charities, multiple. He puts up with this for $1 a year. He's trying to enrich himself. Oh, stop. Oh, he's a member of the New World Order. I hear this stupid. Really? That's why he got us out of the Paris Climate Accord? That's why he got us at a TPP. Although I'm not a fan of the USMCA, and I've criticized him for that because it gives up sovereignty on immigration and business, okay? Gives up some sovereignty. But still, long and short of it is he's way better than what Hillary would have been. Anybody who has a non-Marxist, globalist, New World Order opinion where everybody has to believe that Caitlyn Jenner is really a woman. Yeah, I'm not playing along. You can do what you want. It's a free country. But we'd be all in gulags, which Bernie Sanders says, we're that bad. But David Stockman, I'm giving you a warning that you need to help protect yourself. That's what this is about. Okay? David Stockman, what triggers the next financial collapse is the article he wrote. The whole global economy is really dependent on China piling even more debt onto the $40 trillion pile they've already have. Trump's trade war is basically an economic cruise missile barrage aimed right at that gargantuan pile of unsupported debt. Therefore, I think there are very troubling times ahead. Stockman doesn't think much of the deal. He thinks you're going to find Faye's room, ain't much there. Where's the beef, is what he's basically saying. And what could trigger this? Well, I don't know. Let's talk about Boeing. They haven't sold, their commercial aircraft orders have plunged. Can you imagine trying to get anybody on a 737 MAX? I mean, could you imagine people, whoa, what? This is a 737 MAX? I mean, hundreds of people in a series of crashes have died. And the company memos are awful. I mean, Boeing's a huge company. Could this be part of the reason why the repo market is going crazy? And if you look at what about Deutsche Bank? What about Deutsche Bank? I mean, they got $40-50 trillion in derivatives. They tried to merge it with Commerce Bank, which also has a ton of derivative exposure. And of course, that was the dead marrying the really dead. The dead marrying the deader. So that didn't happen. And then you have the debt clock. The debt ceiling. People don't even realize this. We removed the debt ceiling. Anybody worried about that? Anybody worried about that? No more debt ceiling. We can print all we want. Just like the two wars we had in Iraq and Afghanistan. No draft, no tax increase. Huh? What? No draft, no tax increase. That's all normal. World War II, people suffered, man. There were rubber drives and metal drives, and people bought bonds, and people suffered in World War II to win that. Nope, not now. Then you got China with this trade deal. Are they really going to buy a bunch of agriculture from the United States? We'll see. They're known to renege on things. They reneged on the last deal. Then you have Saudi Arabia, and do they really have all the oil they say they have, or are they pumping millions of gallons of water in the wells to float them up? They just did an IPO. Is that a scam? Whew, you don't think that could start a war if one country loads up on Saudi Arabian, Aramco stock and find out there's hardly left in the wells? Then you got Brexit. Looks like we're going to get one. I think the EU needs Great Britain. I mean, they're trying to hit them up for almost $40 billion on the way out. You have the banks in the EU, not just Deutsche Bank, but other banks and all that negative interest rate. What could pull the trigger? What could go wrong? I'm just naming it off, folks. Japan and its money printing extravaganza, where they're just taking over everything, printing yen. No problems, no worries, everything's okay. We're just going to print money. We'll fix it. As I said about the geopolitical risks, you have protesters in Iran now protesting the downing of this aircraft if they admitted to it. And I mean, it's widespread protests, right? Because the mainstream media is not going to show you that, they won't walk on the flag of the United States or Israel, and they are protesting to get rid of Khomeini. Oh, no. No, the mainstream media can't. Oh, no. Oh, no. They got to join hands with these guys. They got to join hands with the, back in the oppressive regime. Back to Boeing. I mean, there was one company. Just show how bad Boeing is. Just one company. There's a company that helps feed Boeing for services and parts. Have to lay off 28,000 people. Oops. Excuse me, 2,800. They're laying off a lot of people. So, I don't know. What's the trigger? What could happen? What are they fighting? Why is the Fed going crazy with permanent repo operations, which they never had in the past? They didn't do this in the last crisis. And so you look at all the possible trigger points, and I just named a few, and you got a lot of risk out there, and people are ignoring the risk. They think the abnormal environment we have now is normal. It's not. There's a commercial that Bruce Lee was in one time. Says, you have to train every part of your body because you never know what you need in a fight. People say, well, should I have gold, or should I have silver, or should I have food, or should I have a way to protect it, or you should have it all. You should train every bone in your body, every part of your body, because you never know what you need in a fight. You need everything. Cash, you need everything. And listen, is it going to blow up right away? I hope not, because that'll give you time to work. But whatever you get out of this is all I want you to get out of this. And that is, there are monumental risks in the market, particularly in the financial arena, of course, in the geopolitical arena here in America with the whole impeachment in the Senate that's going to go forward. I don't think they're going to be successful, but still risk. And if you look at the Fed's repo market, they're telling you something is really wrong, and we're trying to keep something from happening, an implosion. Not just something to wean people addicted to. No, a complete event horizon, a complete extinction event, I think, that they can't let this happen. They're trying to buy time to figure out something. I don't know what that is. But what you need to know is the risk is out there. Please don't ignore it. A couple of things I want to tell you about, somebody wrote me and said, well, Tom Steyer is advertising on your site. Listen, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people on YouTube and on the USAWatchdog.com site that'll be buying advertising that I don't agree with, but I don't control that. That's AdSense, that's YouTube, and of course, it's kind of a backhanded compliment. I mean, they're actually targeting USAWatchdog.com, the channel and the site, to see if they can get any Trump people away from them. And they're actually targeting. That's not a happenstance, not just a gross thing happening. I think they're actually targeting. So I don't have any control over that. And no, I do not like any of the communist, Marxist, globalist, satanic Democrats. I don't like any of them. I think they'd be bad for America, period, the end. But the advertising is not in my control. Just want to let you know that. Also, I haven't been doing the weekly news wrap-up. And the reason why I haven't been doing it, because I wanted to take some time off. I got 18 to 19. I just got creamed. I didn't get any time off at all. And I thought, I'd like to just take off a big block of time. But then the site would go dark. I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to put some information out, like today. I think this is important. This repo market thing is a big sign, and it ain't going away. It's permanent. And so I stopped doing the weekly news wrap-up. And I stopped doing it only temporarily, because that is the hardest thing I do every week, hands down. I spend tons of time on it. I work on it all week long. I get little articles. I know it's low tech. I know that. But instead of spending time on the tech, I spend time on the content and the research, so you can go to the bank with it. So you know it's real. Sources, research, where I get the articles, who my sources are. I have all that, and of course, as far as the look of it, the technical quality of it, that I put off. I don't worry about as much as I worry about the quality of the information. The mainstream media worries about the look of it a heck of a lot more than the quality of the information. They'll just come out and lie to you, and lie by omission, and outright lie. And so I don't want to do that. So anyway, that's the other thing. And one last thing, I haven't been thanking people. I'm behind on my thank you. So if you're out there and you are one of the people that have donated money either by snail mail or by PayPal, listen, I am just behind. But I wanted to thank everybody for supporting USAWatchdog.com. There's a lot of stuff in the background that has to be done. I'm attacked quite often. I don't even want to get into that, because I don't want to, put a red flag in front of a hacker bull. But I'm attacked quite often, and I have to spend money to thwart those attacks. And I really appreciate all your support of USAWatchdog.com. So I am a little behind in the thank yous, but I am going to catch up. Next week, I probably will get back to more of a normal schedule. I'm not going to promise you a weekly news wrap up, but but I'm going to bring all that back. That's going to come back. So just to let you know, because a lot of people have called me and said, wow, I really missed the weekly news wrap-up. Well, I do too, but I don't miss all the work. But I do the work so I can give you a newscast that you could look at for the week and go, whew, wow, I didn't know this was going on. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know, listen, I thank you very much. I appreciate all your support, all your comments, your donations. I appreciate you very much. Thank you very much for supporting USAWatchdog.com. And I'll sign off with the phrase that would get me fired on network television, and that is, fear not, prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and his Son Jesus Christ are firmly in control. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.